Hey guys, and welcome to Quality Shot. I'm extremely excited to be joined by former heavyweight champion of the world, Lamon Brewster. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for asking. How you doing today?
I'm very good. I'm very good. We were just talking about the weather and how it's pouring down here and very sunny there in Indianapolis. So you can see Lamon he's glowing, and you can see I'm not. but, yeah. But thanks again, Lamon, for joining as well. Um, I mean, there's so much to unpack here. So I guess for those who somehow might not know, let's start from the beginning. I mean, your journey, I guess your childhood. What was it like? And I guess coming through as well, how did you get into boxing?
So at the age of 1980, I'm 48 years old. I'm giving my age away. I started boxing. I started boxing because I had a lot of energy, as most young children, and my mother was time. She was tired of me tearing up the house, basically. And so I came home from school one day, and she said, "You know what? We're going to do something to get rid of your energy." So we ended up going down the street to this community center called Riverside. And when I walked into that gym, just that aroma of sweat and blood and adrenaline and everything else you can smell in the gym, it just did something to me. It resonated inside of me. I remember, so my mother and my father, they didn't live together. They weren't married, basically. But the point I'm making is that when I would go to my dad's house, he always had these gloves that he would keep in his closet. And so he would never let me play with these gloves. But every time he went to the store, I would sneak and open the closet and be smelling these gloves and playing with them. And like this smell was so distinctive. I had never smelled it before. So then you fast forward to the time when my mother took me to this community center, and I walked into this gym for the first time, and all I smelled was the smell of those gloves. And like I said, inside of me, like my spirit was just like, wow, like this is home. And so, my joke is she left me at the gym and never came back. I'm still waiting on her.
Oh gosh. So was it? It sounds like you fell in love with it. It's funny, like when I talk to even just current fighters, they say a similar thing that it's like you fall in love with it when you get into the gym, and it's really interesting how people like falling into it. Your childhood then, how was it like coming through? Obviously boxing as well, fell in love with it as well. In your amateur career, I know you represented the US as well. Mm-hmm. How was it coming through as an amateur?
It was great, man. Because it was a great experience. Coming from the inner city, I never thought that I would get to leave the United States, let alone represent the United States. Going to all these countries. The first country I ever went to at the age of 18, straight out of the ghetto, was Tahiti, of all places. I thought like maybe because I'm in America, maybe I was going to go to Mexico or go to Canada. Man, I'm 18 years old, standing on an inactive volcano with my arms open. Like, wow, nobody would believe this from the hood. You know what I mean? So it really inspired me. And then as I continue to grow in my skill set as an amateur, more and more people start looking up to me, especially young kids. And then I just felt this obligation to my community, whereas I needed to be positive and I needed to present myself in a way where they could look up to me. I'm the oldest of four boys. I didn't want to give my little brothers an excuse to be able to go out in the streets and do the things that temptation calls for us to do from the inner cities. So I did the best I could in trying to be positive, trying to be a leader, trying to be a role model. And, through my faith and through my effort and determination, things worked out for me. So, I'm most grateful for being able to be in this position and have accomplished the things that I've been able to accomplish in my life.
No, very well said. Yeah, I mean it's amazing when you look at your record, and your nickname was Relentless, if I'm not mistaken, and 30 KOs even, sorry, out of 35 wins. which is incredible, like percentage of knockouts as well. So, I mean, where did you get that style from? Where did it come from? The kind of aggressive style, was it through the amateurs? I think I've heard that you had a really high percentage of knockouts in the amateurs as well.
I did, man. I had a 75% knockout rate in the amateurs. I was from 94 to 96. I was the number one amateur at 201 heavyweight. I silver medaled in the Pan American Games in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Shoot, man, came up on the same team. Like, I was actually chose to be the team captain for the 96 Olympics, but divorce kept me out of the Olympics. But
no.
Nevertheless, my love for the sport actually came behind martial arts. I was a big Bruce Lee fan. I watched martial art movies, karate movies my whole life growing up. And I always noticed that they would always train very hard to get revenge. It was always about revenge in the Shaolin Temple. And so for me, my Shaolin Temple was my gym. And it was all about, I noticed with martial arts, it was all about styles. Styles made fights, you know, no matter who you fought, no matter what style you used. And so what I did was I just trained myself, because I used to always set up in my backyard like little obstacle courses and things like that, and just because I wanted to be a karate, I wanted to be like the kung fu dudes. You know, when you're young, you don't know no better. So I was practicing kicking, stretching, nunchucks. I was making nunchucks out of dog chains. I mean, just crazy stuff, man. But what I ended up doing is through the course of boxing, I came to realize that boxing was a form of martial arts. It was matter of fact, Bruce Lee, when he was using his footwork and he was bouncing, he was imitating Muhammad Ali. A lot of people don't know that, you know. And so when I really got into boxing, martial arts and boxing, they're all in one. That, you know, boxing is a martial arts. You know, anybody that tells you any different, they don't know what they're talking about, because you know, you're using your whole body. You got to train your spirit, your mind, and your body to function all as one. And so boxing really came easy to me because my love of martial arts.
That's so interesting. You said about Bruce Lee. You're actually the first person I've heard just say, actually, no, I grew up and I love martial arts, and it was Bruce Lee that was my role model, and the Shaolin Temple as well. That's classic, that is.
Yeah.
Did he have any? Go on, sorry, go on.
No, I was saying Bruce Lee's philosophy on life, his philosophy on fighting, just everything about that man personified my walking on this earth, man. It, you know, I quote Bruce Lee every day, even to this day. I have my own boxing gym, and I quote to my fighters every day Bruce Lee quotes, because he was a philosopher, and his philosophy was really the key to life, because life, boxing, and chess are the exact same thing. So what I also do as part of my training regimen in my gym, not only do I quote my philosophies, I make everybody play chess, because I try to get everybody to, and I use the word overstand. So if you hear me say overstand, I say overstand because under hasn't been enough. So I try to get everybody to overstand that life, chess, and boxing are the same. And you can be successful in life if you have the mentality of a fighter. And then we can talk about that as well, because I have a nonprofit organization, as you see I'm wearing, and I would like to explain that to you at some point.
Go for it. Yeah. You can explain it now. You can explain it now.
Well, okay, so this thing is called Brewster's Place, and Brewster's Place is the first time in the history of boxing that a retired champion can make a living off of after boxing, life after boxing, just by telling his or her story in their country and their language as it relates to being a part of Brewster's Place family. Brewster's Place is a boxing gym mentality. If you've ever been in a boxing gym, you would know any gym you walk into, you're accepted immediately. Why? Because we're there for the same denominator, which is boxing. It doesn't matter if you're a manager, a trainer, if you can fight, if you can't fight. Just if you have an interest in boxing, then you're part of that boxing gym. So what I did was I took that mentality and I made it worldwide. Right now, I have close to 50 world champions that are part of Brewster's Place.
Wow.
I had some of the biggest names like Riddick Bowe, James Toney, Chris Bird, Ray Mercer. I mean, I can go down the list. And what I'm doing is I'm setting up in every country, in every city, they have their own chapters. We want people to have that Brewster's Place mentality, whereas it's a boxing gym mentality outside of the boxing gym. Because in a gym, we don't judge you because of the color of your skin. It don't matter if you tall, you short, you fat, you rich. None of that matters. We're just there for the same common denominator. We have 12 laws, which are basic principles to be a part of Brewster's Place that we ask that you just live by, live according to, so that we can stop killing each other and stop hating each other and start helping each other. Because if you understand boxing, you know we've had millions upon millions of fans to watch us time and time again. So imagine if we all just hold hands. If we all hold hands, imagine how big that net could be around the whole entire world. So I'm asking every fighter, every gym, every trainer, anybody that is in the sport of boxing to join Brewster's Place, because what we are basically doing, essentially, we are mentors to our communities around the world. Because if you want to make a difference in this world, then you got to first start with yourself. And then you got to start with the people underneath you, because these young men, young women are going to grow up and be in our shoes one day. And they're going to be the ones making the decisions. And the decisions that they make are going to be based upon the principles that we taught them today. So that's what Brewster's Place is about. It doesn't matter if you have a nonprofit organization. We're asking you to be partners with us as a family. And what that does is that gives you the ability to have contact with each and every world champion that is a part of Brewster's Place around the whole entire world.
No, that's really well said. It's interesting because I talked to quite a few fighters and they actually talk about after boxing, and I've also talked to a few ex-fighters as well, and they say that after boxing there's not much support for fighters. So that sounds like a really good cause. So I'll timestamp that as well, and if you have a link for it, I'll put the link in the description as well to the video as well. So people
absolutely, because the way this thing works is that fighters are going to get paid to sit in front of a camera, just like I'm sitting right now, wherever you're at, as long as it's a little quiet. And you're basically going to teach an affirmation. And one affirmation, we have 33 affirmations. In each affirmation, you have to be able to tell how it applies to your life and how it applies to you in the ring. Because who better to teach these young men and young women on how to be successful in life than a world champion? So what I'm doing, I'm starting with the champions, and it doesn't have to be a world champion. You just have to be some type of champion to understand, or should I say, understand what true success is. Because you got a lot of people, as the Bible say, the blind can't lead the blind. You got a lot of people trying to tell people how to get somewhere that they've never been. So who better to hear it than straight from the horse's mouth, right through Zoom, which is how it's done. So every participant gets 12 world champions as their mentors, and they go on the Brewster's Place website, and it'll tell who their mentors was. It'll tell the time that they graduated, because each session is about 45 minutes and there are 12 sessions. And at the end, you get dog tags. And the dog tags, you get your name on it, and one has the Brewster's Place logo naturally, but the other tag has the Brewster's Place, has your name on it, and it has a fighting name that one of the mentors gave you to go on your dog tag. So now as a world champion, anytime I'm out, if I see anybody with the Brewster's Place dog tags, as a world champion, I acknowledge them. And so whenever I'm out and I see somebody, I raise my fists up like the referee would tell us. And when he call you to the middle of the ring at the first and last round, and he say touch up. So if I see you out, I'm gonna acknowledge you. So how many people can ever say they are acknowledged by a world champion around the whole entire world, letting you know that we are one family? Brewster's Place is a boxing gym outside of a boxing gym. And it's time for us in this day and time to come together and show what a family is. We are a support team.
No, well said for sure. Just to go back into your childhood, then, just to kind of go back onto your journey. You said that Bruce Lee was a massive inspiration. Was there anyone boxing related when you're growing up? Was there a specific person? Were there a few people that you looked up to when you're coming through and through the amateurs?
Well, there were a few people that I looked up to my whole career. I've had the opportunity to work with some of the people that I grew up watching on my father's sofa when he would watch boxing. But like people that I idolized was Marvin Hagler, rest in peace. Um, Larry Holmes, James Toney, who I sparred with more rounds with James Toney than any man in my whole entire career. He's my dear brother. I looked up to my cousin Chris Bird. I looked up to a lot of fighters for many different reasons, but I would primarily say Marvin Hagler. Why? Because the simple fact that when Marvin Hagler came into to the ring, he didn't come to be flashy. He didn't come doing all that talk. He just came to fight. And that's just what I tried to model myself after. I never cared about the money. I never cared about the fame. I just wanted to be a world champion. And when Sugar Ray Leonard beat Marvin Hagler, I remember, I think I was 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, and the ESPN came on and it said Marvin Hagler had just lost to Sugar Ray Leonard. And something rose up out of me and it looked down upon me and it was like, you're going to be champion of the world. And from that day forward, I just prayed to God every day to let me be world champion. And even though at 12, 13, I don't even remember what I weighed, but every time I went up in a different weight, I always said, God, let me be world champion, to the point that even after I beat Wladimir Klitschko, I mean, at the age of 31, now I said this was 12, 13 years old. At the age of 31, when I beat Wladimir Klitschko, I had prayed to God almost every day from that time to let me be world champion, to the point that it became repetitious. I had to stop myself in the middle of my prayers after winning the world title because I was still asking God to let me be world champion. I already am world champion, you know?
That's a classic, that is. Oh, that's great. You know what? And you've literally... It's a perfect segue into what I was going to talk to you about, which is that fight, which is
Right.
April 10th, 2004, where you became world champion, as you said, and didn't have to pray anymore after. Won the WBO World Heavyweight title, beating, what some regard as one of the best heavyweights, kind of ever, really, in Wladimir Klitschko. And one of, he's definitely, Hall of Famer, and it was an incredible victory by yourself. I wanted to ask you, actually, one, what was your game plan going into it? And two, did you expect Klitschko to fight the way that he did?
Okay. Going into this fight was very unique. And this is why you always hear me mention about playing chess. You always hear me talk about playing chess a lot. I knew from the physical standpoint, Wladimir Klitschko had the reach, he had the height, and he had the weight over me. So regardless of my skill level, because I could have matched him skill for skill, but I would have been at a disadvantage because of his height and his weight. And so what I decided to do was sacrifice, as a chess player, sacrifice my pawns to expose him, to get him in a position where he couldn't beat me because of his size. He couldn't beat me because of his skill. I played a game of chess with him, whereas he had to beat me on will. I fought him not to win the rounds. And if you look at my fights, I normally try to win the rounds like any fighter, but I knew I wasn't going to win the rounds. I wasn't going to beat, for lack of a better word, this first time, well, he ain't the first, but European heavyweight champion, super heavyweight gold medalist that had all the favor and politics, as I call it, in his favor. So I knew the only way I was going to win was if I knocked him out. So what I did was I went into the fight. I didn't care about winning the rounds. I cared about making him punch. I wanted to make him punch when he didn't want to punch. Make him fight when he didn't want to fight. Make him hold when he didn't want to hold, to get him into the later rounds. Because watching his fights in the past, I noticed that he would always be so tired after every fight, during the interviews. And I was watching Ray Mercer fight when he lost to Ray Mercer. I'm sorry, when he beat Ray Mercer. And I said, well, I'm younger, I'm stronger, and I'm a devastating puncher. If I can get him in the late rounds, but that would mean I would have to sacrifice all these rounds. I wouldn't be able to win. I have to endure these big blazing punches that he would be throwing at me. But if I could get him, and I had in my mind, the plan was to get him into the 6th and 7th round and then turn it up, as we was calling it, shift gears. My trainer, Shadid Saluki, was working with me. Shadid Saluki was trained by my former trainer, Bill Slayton, who used to train Ken Norton. And so I had Shadid to come on to help me to perfect this plan that my trainer Bill Slayton had already laid out for me, because he saw, as he was getting older and getting sick before he died, that I was one day might face this Wladimir Klitschko, and it seemed like all the American fighters he was walking through and destroying. So I said, well, you know, I have to fight in a way I've never ever fought in my life. I've never ever fought to wear somebody down by giving up the rounds. And like I said, and with the mindset of playing chess, which is why I stayed focused. What I didn't lose my focus when he started throwing the big punches, when he started laying on me and everything that he was doing. I just knew that every second of the round, I had to make him punch. I had to make him fight until he got to the point where the only thing was going to win the fight for him was going to be his will versus my will. And I knew that his will would never be as great as my will, because he don't know what struggle is. I came up hard. I came up rough. I came up in the ghetto. I came up around drugs. I came up with all my friends dying and going to jail and things like that. So I knew if I could fight according to that emotion with my heart, I knew that he would have to be able to dig deep too, because now his size don't matter. Now the fact that he could punch don't matter. His gold medals, his upbringing, only thing matters how much did he want it. And my trainer used to say, do you still want to hunt when the rabbit got the gun? So if I could put him in a position where I was the rabbit with the gun, because I've taken away everything that he had, which made him who he was, and fight me on that level, then I would have a better chance of winning. And that's what I did. I went out there, and you could look from the first bell to the last bell, man. I just put pressure. I just, every time that the ref said fight, the bell rang, I ran to him, because I was trying to let him know that and I told him at the press conference, I said, the only way you're going to win is if you knock me out. And he had hurt me with a shot, but I ended up taking a knee because the shot that he would have hit me with after that probably would have stopped the fight. But I ended up, and that was the first time I had been down as a professional. But even then, like, I had went over every basis. If I got knocked down, how to get up, what to do, and everything worked to the T, man. I did everything I was supposed to do. And the Most High God, he blessed me with that victory. And so I just try to let everybody know that you can accomplish any goal that you want in life if you're willing to work hard, if you're willing to play the game. Because everything that calls for success is a game, because it takes a measure of planning, which planning is, at the end of the day, is a game. So my game plan worked well, and I was able to win that fight.
Yeah, it sounds like you stuck to the game plan, right? And it paid off. Do you mind explaining that for that 5th round when you got the stoppage? Do you mind explaining how that went?
Well, thank you for asking that, because I was actually leading up to that as well, man. When I was fighting him, as I said, I just kept trying to keep pressure on him, just keeping pressure. But I didn't plan on turning it up until the 6th round. And all through training camp, we kept talking about shifting gears. Okay, 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, but I wasn't ready to shift gears until the 6th round. But in the 3rd round, I had hit him with a body shot when we were close, and I saw him lift up his leg. And I was always listening to his breathing. And his breathing kept getting heavier and heavier. And then, like I said, the physics of it, physically, he's bigger than me, which means that his heart has to work harder. His heart has to work harder than my heart in order to get blood to flow to the top of his head, to the bottom of his feet, than mine. So with me being a smaller man, though it was very hard on me, I knew it was harder on him if I kept that pressure, because there's a saying, pressure busts pipes. So I knew if I just kept putting that pressure, then it wasn't going to be about his power. And if you notice in the 4th round, I think it was the fourth round when that pressure got to him. You could just see him throwing the hardest punches he could in a defensive way to say, stay back. I'm gonna knock you out. I'm gonna get you out of here because you're bothering me. You're messing up my fight, which is what I wanted. And like I said, when we got to that fifth round, and when he had knocked me down, well, he didn't knock me down, but when he hurt me with the shot and I took the knee, when I was looking over at him, he was breathing so freaking hard. And my mind said, okay, you got a decision to make. You can wait until the next round and try to turn it up, or you can go get him now because he's breathing really hard. Like, he was so out of breath. I was tired too. I was really tired. But like I said, this fight was won on will. It wasn't won on who was the best condition, who was the best skilled. And so when I got up and I ran over to him, his eyes was like, oh my gosh, I've hit this man with everything I could, and there's nothing I can do. So psychologically, I had already gotten his head because everything he tried to do, trying to keep me away, trying to hold on to me, I didn't let none of that get to me. Yeah, it took a big effect on me because it made my legs tired. And, you're hurting because he's throwing these big punches. He's leaning on you. And when you got to wait for the referee to come, you got all them extra seconds to put his weight on you, and it wears you out. But I was able to endure. And like I said, when I got to that fifth round and I saw how tired he was, I made the conscious decision to shift gears. And I shift gears. If you saw, I turned it up on him. And shoot, man, I was able to get the victory right at the end of the bell, man. When the bell rang, boom, I hit him with that hook. He fell to the canvas, man. And I walked back to the corner like, I got to hurry up and get back so I can get myself refreshed, man, because I gave a lot that round. I really turned it up. And then my coach was in front of me, and he was talking to me, giving me instructions. And then he looked back. And then he looked back again. I'm like, man, what the heck are you looking at, man? Give me some water. And then he said, man, the fight is over. And I'm in shock, like, huh? What? The fight is what? And I looked over around his body, and I saw Wladimir Klitschko with the referee with his arm around him, waving it off. I was like, thank you, God. Thank you. So that was just a plan that worked, man. It's a very hard plan. It definitely ain't the type of plan that I would have chosen, because I had to sacrifice, like I say, my pawns, which can be very costly because he's a very hard puncher. He's in great condition, and he's a very skilled fighter. I wouldn't recommend it for the faint-hearted, but like I say, I was doing it from another standpoint, because skill-wise, I know I couldn't have beat him because he had the height and reach over me. Now, had he had been my size, I could have easily boxed him, very easily boxed him. Matter of fact, his style wouldn't even have came into play. But when you got that height and that reach and that weight, I mean, that's the reason why Anthony Joshua lost to Usyk, because he didn't use the Wladimir Klitschko tactic. He didn't use his weight. He didn't use his size. He didn't use his power and just walk him down. If you're going to try to box with a boxer, that's the stupidest thing ever. When you're that big with them kind of skills, you're going to box a guy who was an undisputed cruiserweight champion. You ain't too smart to do that. You know what I mean? Like his whole strategy should have been using his weight. The same thing to the T that Tyson Fury did when he fought Deontay Wilder. He didn't try to just use his skill. He used his will. He laid on him. He grabbed him. He made it a rough fight, because for a smaller guy, for that weight that he was putting on him, that would have wore him down. I mean, a guy, no matter how skilled you are, when you got a guy like Anthony Joshua laying on you and he got 10, 20 pounds on you and all that strength, it takes a little bit out of you and a little bit out of you. And on top of that, he hitting you to the body. There's no way Usyk would have won that fight. And I don't slight Usyk. Usyk he's a tremendous fighter. I'm very, very happy for him. And what I'm hoping comes out of that fight, I'm hoping that the world will see that you don't have to be a really big heavyweight to be successful. All you got to do is have the determination and have the skill set, which is what Usyk showed. And I showed when I fought Wladimir, and so I hope that Usyk will be able to spark a nation of fighters that are 6 foot, 220, 230 pounds, that you can see you can beat these big guys, but you got to do it with skill. But again, getting back to Anthony Joshua, because he didn't use his full potential. He tried to match skill with skill. You can't match skill with a guy like Usyk. You have to use your height, your weight, your strength. You have to use everything. You can't just play on a chessboard because you're really good with your bishops and your knights. You got to bring your queens into an equation, and you got to be willing to sacrifice your pawns. Sacrificing your pawns in this game with Anthony Joshua versus Usyk would have been him putting his weight, getting close to a guy like Usyk with shorter arms. That would have been his pawn sacrifice, but nevertheless, it would have wore him down because Usyk was very tired, but Usyk did a Lamon Brewster. He won on determination. He won on his skill set.
No, that's very well said. I was actually, when you said about size, using size and strength, that actually made me think of that fight. I was going to ask you about it, so thank you. That's I was literally about to ask you about Anthony Joshua, and also you guys have a bit of a connection as well, because obviously he was the last person to knock out Wladimir Klitschko, but before that was you.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting. So you guys are connected in that way as well. You said obviously Klitschko punches really hard. I mean, he's got the nickname Dr. Steelhammer, so I'm assuming that's why. How hard did he punch? I mean, is this power that have you felt it from anyone else, or what kind of punching power are we talking about?
So to answer that is going to be pretty difficult. I'm gonna tell you why. Because I studied Chi Kong Do, and Chi Kong is a matter. It's an art of taking someone's punch, absorbing that punch, and giving it back to him. So I would absorb his power and not think about how hard he could punch, because the mindset of understanding is that if you are concerned about how hard your opponent hits you, then what about the next punch while you're steady thinking about, oh, that punch hurt? So my thought was I would think about the pain afterwards, which, as you know, you can't remember pain. You can remember you can't remember what it felt like. You can just remember how it felt to the extent of the pain. But we as humans, we're not really I guess the word is we're not made to register pain and keep it in our mind, like when you think, oh, that hurt. No, yeah, it hurt, but I can't tell you how it felt from back then, because like whenever he would hit me with a punch, all I would be doing is worried about the next punch that could come. So I would never stop to say, oh, it hurt. I could just tell you he was a hard puncher. I could tell you he was very strong. I could tell you he was in shape. I could tell you he was a skilled fighter. But again, my whole thought was take what he give to me and give it back to him. And that's what the study of the martial art Qigong was for me, was to take whatever my opponent gave me in terms of pain and give it back with his own energy, with my energy on top of it.
That's really interesting. Okay, no, I get you. What was the difference then between the first fight with Klitschko, where you obviously stuck to the game plan really well, got it done, and then obviously the return in Germany, where obviously it didn't quite go your way? What was the difference between the two fights?
Night and day. Okay, so I have fought Sergey Lyakovich. I had suffered a detached retina, and so they rushed me. They flew me to a hospital in Los Angeles, and I had this surgery. And whatever, I don't know what happened, because they said that the pain that I was experiencing was not conducive with that particular surgery. But I was in the type of pain from a 1 to 10. It was a 10. They had morphine hooked up to me, and man, like I hurt. I mean, for 9 months, I'm in and out of the hospital. I'm having this type of pain, and they telling me they don't know why I was having this type of pain. They don't know if this pain was ever going to go away. So for 9 months, I'm basically battling to want to live, because I'm in a constant pain from the time I go to sleep to the time I wake up. They got me hooked up to morphine drips, and I'm still in pain. And so I'm contemplating even giving up my life, because you're telling me that I may have to go through the rest of my life in this kind of pain. So I'm laid up in a hospital on my deathbed, basically. But what ended up happening was they brought in the top physician from the pain physician from California, and he was able to find measures to help me to get rid of my pain by giving me medical marijuana. Back then, we talking 2006, and it made the pressure go down. Whereas they was giving me all this Vicodin, they was giving me this codeine and all this stuff. None of that worked. None of it worked. All it would do was just knock me out. But I still was in pain when I was asleep. They said I used to cry in my sleep because I was in so much pain. Now this was from my surgery, and so he said he didn't cut a nerve. I take his word for it. I don't know, but I just know I was in that much pain and I was ready to give up on life. And so what ended up happening was, after about 9 months, the pain started to decline finally. And so I got released from the hospital. I can't make this up, by the way. I'm in the Marina Del Rey hospital parking lot, getting into the car. My phone rings. It's Wladimir Klitschko's people saying Wladimir Klitschko wants to fight you. Now, mind you, I've been laid up in a hospital for over 9 months. The record shows. I can't make this up. So they're saying Wladimir Klitschko wants to fight you, and I'm like, huh? Man, I just took off my hospital clothes, and so then I say, well, listen, I need a tune-up, man. And I was like, man, I haven't fought in 9 months. I haven't been in the gym, and I haven't ran. I haven't did a sit-up. I ain't even been able to set my head up straight because I had to keep my head down, looking down at the ground for 9 months, because every time I set my head up, I had this extreme pain coming to my head, man. It felt like somebody pulled my eyeball out and the vein was still attached to my brain, and it felt like some fat man with steel-toed boots was standing on the vein that ran from my eye to my brain. And you're asking me to fight Wladimir Klitschko, and I'm like, well, hold on, man. I need some time to get myself right. I've never done this. This was the first time in my entire life I've not been active since I was born. I've been laying in a bed for 9 months. Now you want me to fight for the world title? So they say, well, how much can we pay you? And so I knew that the Klitschkos had the titles, and there was no way on earth they were going to allow me to get myself right and then fight him when I was 100%. So I took the fight because I knew I had a puncher's chance, and, you know, the money they offered me. So I knew what I was going into. But then I got into the fight. I only had 3 months to train for the fight after being laid up in a hospital bed face down for 9 months. And I was rusty, and my depth perception was off, because whenever you have a detached retina, you can't tell the distance between you and your opponent. So, man, everything was in his favor to win, and he won the fight. So, and I tell people, he didn't hurt me. He didn't knock me down. He didn't stagger me. He didn't do anything. He used his jab. He stayed away from me. My eye started to swell up, the same eye that I had the detached retina, and they thought my retina was detaching again, so they stopped the fight. But if you see the fight, I didn't do anything, but he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything spectacular. He won the fight, but he was supposed to. I've been in the hospital for 9 months.
That's interesting.
So, you know, I say that because it's like, if people want to say, oh, Wladimir beat Lamon Brewster. No, you didn't beat Lamon Brewster. You beat an injured, rusty, I ain't going to say I was out of shape, but I'm just going to say I didn't have nothing going for me going into that fight, man. I did the best I could, and I knew if I hit him, I would knock him out. But you could see he put on his dancing shoes and he stayed away. He didn't try to fight toe-to-toe with me. Yeah. I would have knocked him out. But, you know, like I said, man, with me going into that second fight, I was laid up in the hospital for 9 months, and then only had 3 months to get ready for him. So if I was to beat him, well, then shame on him. There's no way on earth that he should ever fought again. But he was able to, I guess you say, get the revenge when he beat me. Really is 1-1. But the difference between me and him was he got carried to the hospital on a stretcher. I walked out. I didn't have to go to a hospital, and I wasn't beat up. He was beat up. But that's in the past, man. Wladimir, he's a great fighter. He held the title longer than any champ, if I'm not mistaken. And he, you know, he's a good dude, man. I have nothing negative to say about him, and I'm glad for all his success. I'm glad for everything he's done for his people, you know, being a Ukrainian champ, the first world heavyweight champion from Ukraine. I mean, that's big, man. And Wladimir is a good dude, and he's smart, he's educated. I think he's great for the sport.
Yeah, no, well said. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like the timing, they say timing is everything in boxing. I think they got you at the right time. That's
yeah, man. I'm telling you, I can't make that up, man. I was in a parking lot after finally being released from the hospital, and is Wladimir, like, was y'all watching me? Did y'all know I was in like, how did y'all know I was in the parking lot like, I ain't even been to a gym in 9 months. But now you telling me you want to fight me for the world title. And I knew if I didn't take that fight, there's no way they was going to allow me to fight for that title down the road, because they knew.
Interesting. Well, to be fair, before that fight, you had beaten Andrew Golota in, I think it's the fastest knockout in heavyweight title history, I think.
Yes, sir.
Do you want to explain how that went and what kind of feeling was it after?
Yeah, man. So that was a fight where I was set up to lose. You know, Don King wanted a white heavyweight champion because he was a man about making money. And by allowing a guy like Andrew Golota to beat me, man, that would have made him so much more money than another black heavyweight champion. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. From a political standpoint, it's genius. I ain't mad at him for it. I just mad that he tried to use me. Why do I say that? Because he made that fight in Chicago, which, as you know, Andrew Golota is Polish and has the largest Polish population in the world outside of Poland. And so by making that fight at the United Center and putting it on television, he maximized the dollars he would make, because he knew all the Polish people around the world was going to not only come to that fight, which is 18,000, and it sold out. The people around the world on every network was going to pay to watch that fight. So he made like a thief in the night. I didn't hardly get anything, but the point is, I fought him. And when I got there, they told me that that the referee was going to be one of his trainer's best friends, and he was like supposed to have been the worst referee in all of the state of Illinois. And as a champion, I have the right. Any champion has a right to veto anybody he wants out of the fight, whether it's a judge, a referee, anybody like that. So I use my power to try to get him kicked out and replaced with another referee to make sure that I got a fair fight. Because it's enough that I'm about to fight in the belly of the beast. I'm about to fight in his backyard, which is Little Poland, basically, in Chicago. And so, you know, man, it was crazy because they told me they couldn't remove him from refereeing a fight. And I'm like, huh? What do you mean? I'm the champ. Andrew Golota was not my mandatory. I didn't even have to give him the fight, but I gave him the fight because I wanted to redeem myself from the fight that I had before when I fought Kali Mihan, because I didn't stop Kali Mihan. It was a close, hard fight, and I made the fight hard. So to redeem myself so people didn't think that the Klitschko fight was a fluke, I gave him the fight. I went on and accepted the fight with Andrew Golota. And I'm saying that they have the college March Madness in Indianapolis every I think around March, whenever it was when I fought Golota. And so he said we couldn't do the fight in my hometown. So he said you could do it in Chicago. But I didn't know at the time that Chicago had the largest Polish population in the world. I just knew that Andrew Golota was from Chicago, and I knew Chicago wasn't too far from me. And I always loved Chicago, and Chicago was the first big city I've ever went to. So I said I would do it there. And so I ended up taking that fight there, only to find out that the referee was the best friend of his trainer, and he was the worst referee in the state. And I ended up taking this fight, and I couldn't back out of it after I found out all these details. And so when we got to the fight in the morning, we had an interview the day before. Golota, we went into this little room, just the two of us, and the guy asked Golota what was he going to do. And the question, he said, the question was, because he had all these reporters around the world on this screen asking us questions in this small room, just me, Galata, and the interviewer could be in, and the rest of our teams had to stay outside. So he's asking me these questions. I'm sorry, he asked Galata the question, and Galata jumped up and ran over to me and stood over me, and I'm still sitting down talking about I'm gonna knock you out, acting like he was gonna hit me. And I'm like, huh? Like, first of all, you ain't even my mandatory. I'm doing you a favor. If you hit me, not only will you not make it out of this room alive, you know what I mean? So that angered me, you know, because it's like, this is your appreciation for me allowing you to fight for the title. So that made me angry. So then I'm in the locker room and I'm getting ready to come out and walk into the ring. As I'm walking out, people are spitting on me as I'm walking out of the tunnel into the ring. And in my life, I've never even seen in a movie where a fighter was getting spit on walking to the ring. So by the time I got to the ring, man, I was so angry. I didn't even care about boxing no more. I just wanted to fight, like street fight. I wanted to kill this dude. So when the bell rang, I didn't go out there to box. I went out there just to street fight, and he made the one mistake. He tried to stand toe-to-toe with Lamon Brewster. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. The only person that's ever been able to stand toe-to-toe with me was Cliff ATN, and that was because I tore my ACL in the first round. But even then, I didn't take no steps back. He didn't either. But at the same time, if my ACL would have been good, he would have been out.
How the knockout then? I mean, round one, and it's so quick as well. Did you expect it to be that quick?
I didn't even care. I just wanted to murder this dude because I'm so mad, man. I ain't never been spit on in my life walking to no fight. I mean, not just one person. I'm talking about. So when I'm walking out the tunnel, I was like, man, somebody throwing water. I look up, it's people on top of the tunnel as I'm walking out spitting on me. I mean, they're spitting on me. Now like I say, I didn't have to give him a fight. This is the way you pay me. Like I'm a piece of trash. You're spitting on me like a dog. So when I got in the ring, like I say, I didn't care about fighting. I didn't care about boxing. I didn't care about judges, referee. I didn't care about money. I didn't even care about winning. I wanted to murder this dude because they treated me so bad and I didn't deserve that. So I made him pay for it.
No. Well, you definitely made him pay for it. Very, very quick knockout. So, yeah, definitely down in history as well. And a lot of people remember that for sure. Well, I wanted to ask you, actually. So you mentioned Clifford Etienne, and obviously you had 2 losses before you won your world title. Now, but around your time and also prior to that as well, so before, a lot of people had losses on their record before getting a world title. Nowadays, there seems to be a lot of emphasis on the O. I don't know whether that's because of Floyd, and obviously, you know, he had a lot of emphasis on saying, you know, I'm unbeaten and everything. Do you think there's too much importance around being unbeaten nowadays?
Yes, I do. If you look at all the old champions, man, all the old champions in any weight, they all had losses. Sugar Ray Robinson, the greatest fighter of all time. Gosh, man, Sugar Ray Leonard, Muhammad Ali, you can name them. You can go through it, man. Listen, you don't lose unless you stop fighting. You understand? A loss is nothing more than a gain because a setback is a setup. Because every time you lose, you go back to the drawing board and say, okay, I need to do this. I need to do that. And you're not a quitter unless you quit. You don't fail. You don't lose. If your goal is to be a world champion, just because you lose a fight don't mean you lost. It means you had a setback. Now, you can take that setback and make yourself greater because when people lost fights like Muhammad Ali, he used to say, I got to die and come back. When he lost to Joe Frazier, he said, I got to die and come back. So he understood or overstood what he needed to do to make himself a much better fighter. There's no such thing as losing in boxing. If I'm trying to be a world champion now, if I lose as a world champion, I lost my title, okay, then I got beat. But just because I have a blemish on my record, that don't mean nothing. That means I'm trying to make it to the top. And that's the problem with the world. That's why we're failing, because everybody believes that you have to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. We strive for perfection. Perfection means making mistakes. Okay, I bumped my head. That means I need to go this way. Okay, I bumped my head. I need to do this. I bumped my head. I need to get more sleep. I bumped my head. I need to run farther. Oh, okay, now I bumped my head enough. I got enough negative things to balance out all the good things. Now I can raise my hand and say I'm a world champion. So that's what a champion is. A champion is not a person that is undefeated. That don't mean nothing at the end of the day.
Since they say nowadays, especially a lot of books, they say an L is for learning, right? So it's a learning experience is what you take from it. If you learn from it, then come back.
I never heard that. I never heard that, but that is great. I'm going to use that, man. That L is for learning. Exactly. Because I lost my first 2 amateur fights. And I could have given up, especially as a kid, but it was something inside me that just drove me to train harder, to run harder, to pay more attention, to practice longer. And I became, a decorated amateur champion, a silver medalist at the Pan American Games, a 2-time U.S. national champ, 4-time state Golden Glove champ, heavyweight champion of the world, record holder, the fastest knockout. I mean, all this was because of my losses. It wasn't because of my wins. It was my losses. It was the things that held me back that made me go further.
Yeah, agreed. And it's funny, someone who fought at a similar time to you, Johnny Nelson here in the UK, cruiserweight, he lost a lot of his early fights, like first up, and then he became cruiserweight champion and one of the longest reigning as well, had the WBO title as well. So that was it's interesting, right? So here in the UK, that's always a story that comes up because there's a lot of media work here as well, which is quite interesting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, the thing is that we're living in a time where your social media status, what you say and the way you dress means something in this world. But like I said, I come from the era of the mindset of a warrior. I don't care what I look like. I ain't got nothing to say. I'm gonna speak with my hands. And I don't care if you follow me or not. I don't care if you for me or against me. I come to do what I come to do, which is win the world title, which is what I done. If I would have based it upon how many followers I had, if I'd have based it upon, because I had a blemished record or undefeated record, like I never would have made it. I mean, I'm a warrior. I'm a real warrior. I don't care about these materialistic things, man. I don't care about records and stats. The only thing that matters is me getting my hand raised that night at the end of that fight, and if these fighters stop worrying about what Floyd did. And listen, I'm not mad at him for that, because everybody looks at a model of success. Yeah. When you have Muhammad Ali, people try to be like Muhammad Ali when he had the title. When Mike Tyson came in, people try to be like Mike Tyson. People try to be like Sugar Ray Leonard. People try to be like Floyd Mayweather. You always take that model of success and try to implement it into your life. But at the end of the day, you have to have the mindset of a warrior. You have to be able to identify with the type of fighter that you are spiritually, mentally, and physically. And matter of fact, that's what Brewster's Place is about. It's about teaching people how to perceive life as a fight, because life is a fight, but you have to base that up on your stance, which is the first thing you learn at Brewster's Place, because your stance is based on your mentality. You can have an aggressive mentality, a defensive mentality, or a counterpuncher mentality. And the same way you apply yourself in a fight is the same way you would apply yourself in life. But if you don't know how to use these things, then you can't make it in life. And the mathematical equation that I have is education without application leads to a life of frustration, because you got a lot of educated fools because they don't know how to apply themselves. So what we teach at Brewster's Place as mentors is to teach people to apply themselves to life with the mindset of a fighter, because every punch a fighter throws in the ring, we can tell you what it means outside the ring. Everything that we do, whether it's getting knocked down, whether it's coming from behind, we can tell you what it means in life. So what we're trying to do is trying to teach these young men and these young women how to have the perception of going about life to be successful. Because again, education without application, which is what we teach, because school don't teach application. Education without application leads to a life of frustration. So again, chess, boxing, and life, they are the same things.
No, well said. Well said. And then just finally on your career, then obviously your last fight was against Hellenius, who was coming through really exciting prospect. He's still fighting now. I mean, he beat up Adam Kaunaki the other night in the undercard, and no, he's a very good fighter. In that fight, was it a case of, okay, I know, whilst that fight's going on, are you thinking to yourself, this is me, I'm done, like, it's time to retire?
No, what happened in that particular fight, man, was they didn't allow us to have a glove inspection. Now, since I started boxing at the age of 7, in all the countries I ever went to my whole entire life, amateur or pro, we've always had a glove inspection. When I got there about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours before the fight, and I walked past his room. They said he was already there. He had already been there and had his door shut. I ain't tripping, but it's like, okay, and that's kind of weird, especially if you're a main event. You don't fight until, you don't come to a fight until maybe an hour or two before the fight. But here's the point. So when I get there, they put me in the gymnasium and they're watching me. Okay, that's what you're supposed to do. But then when I say, okay, let us send a representative to watch him get his hands wrapped, and then let them send a representative, which they already standing over me, watching me. They say to me, well, we're not doing that. Like, what you mean? Well, we're using the Austria rules. But what do you mean? We're in Germany. We're using Austria rules, which means you don't have to, there's no glove inspection. But you're standing over me, watching me get my hands wrapped, and you're telling me he already had his hands wrapped. Now, only people that get their hands wrapped real early before a fight are people that's wrapping their hands that got an agenda, which is called waterlogging, which is when you do water wraps, and then you let it dry, and it takes about 3 hours, but it makes like a brick. So I'm looking at dudes. I have been looking at his record anyway. He didn't have a lot of knockouts or anything like that, so I wasn't worried about his power. But again, they're using Austria rules, and they threatened me. Said, well, if you don't fight, because I was like, man, I'm not going to fight without an inspection. Like, I've never not had an inspection, amateur or pro. They say, well, if you don't fight, we're going to make you get your own way from this venue back to the hotel. Well, I'm 2 hours outside of Checkpoint Charlie. I don't know where I'm at. And you telling me that I got to get my own way back from this venue to the hotel, from the hotel back to Berlin, and from Berlin all the way back home. So they was like, yes. So basically they was like, if you don't fight, even though we're not going to let you inspect the gloves. So I knew where that was going. I knew, and as a matter of fact, that morning, the phone in my room had rang, and my wife picked up the phone, and she didn't say anything. She just looked at me and put the phone down, but I knew not to answer the phone anyway. And then she told me after the fight, they were saying somebody had called anonymously and said, tell Lamon to be careful. They're going to try something sneaky. You don't know what sneaky is. And she didn't tell me anyway, and it wouldn't have mattered. So I get into the fight with this guy, and I just noticed, and again, I've been fighting since 1980, since I was 7 years old. I just noticed that his punches were so unnatural. They were so, like, he had something. I can't confirm. I don't know what he had, but whatever he had, I just know it cut my cornea and it cut my iris. It caused my iris and my cornea to heal, which is how I lost my vision. To this day, I'm blind from that fight because whatever he had in his glove was so hard. And then I had slits. Now, as a fighter, you've seen fighters get cut. When we cut on a brow of our eyes. I had slits across both eyelids like he had a razor or something. I don't know. Okay, I don't know what, but I just know I went to my doctor in Beverly Hills named Dr. Robert Corns, the senior, and he's been a boxing doctor for 40 years. He tells me when I get back to America, he says these cuts are inconclusive with boxing. I'm like, okay, doc, break that down. He said, I've never seen these type of cuts because you're supposed to cut on a broad eye. Why do you got slits across your eyelids? And whatever it was also slit my eye, slit my cornea, my iris. Now, I can't make this up. You can contact Dr. Robert Corns of Beverly Hills, and you can look at the record yourself. But the point is, they put something in his glove. They had to, because I'm sitting here and I'm blind. Now, people would think, oh, it was because it's detached retina. No, that was healed. But this whatever they did, that was something totally different. I can't say. I don't know. I just know his punches felt harder than anybody I ever been in the ring with. And if you look at his record, he didn't have a lot of knockouts. So it tells me that they did some foul play. Somebody anonymously called my room that morning, and they said to my wife, and like I said, when I got out the ring and I got in the mirror, man, I got all these slits across my eyelids. Like, what the heck? Like, this ain't right, you know? So when I get back to America, they're going to tell me I did it to myself. Why would I cut my own eyes like that? And I reported it after the fight. They're going to say I didn't make a claim. Well, the fight was stopped because I couldn't see in my eye. Like, dude. So, you know, man, then they told me I had to get on a plane, fly back to Germany to sue the biggest promoter in Germany. Like, that's stupid. That would never work. You know what I mean? So I just let it go, man. I just live my life every day. And like the Bible says, it's better for a man to go to heaven with one eye than to go to hell with two. So I just try to use every experience in my life and try to make it a positive thing, man. You know, it happened. I can't change it. And, you know, even I can even say that I'm happy for his last victory. But, you know, whatever it was, God is going to punish him, or whoever it was that knowingly did that, whereas it caused me to lose my vision, because, you know, God don't like ugly and he ain't too fond of cute.
No, I think that's the perfect way to end it there as well. So thank you, Lamon Brewster, for being on. Really appreciate you taking time out of your day. I've definitely kept you longer than we said, so I do appreciate it. And yeah, guys, do check it out. I'll put the link to the description to Bruce's place in the video as well, and let people know. But yeah, thank you very much, guys. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share it with your friends. And thank you very much.
Told you 5 minutes.